Hey, football fans, it's Gary Greene, longtime sports handicapper, professional sports bettor here in Las Vegas for the past 35 years, doing our Gary Wins videos. And this is a video about a revenge game in the NFL for week number 8. And we see revenge games each and every week littered across the schedule in college and NFL, but not all of them are really meaningful and revenge games. Of course, somebody that lost last year lost 3 in a row. They're going to be out for revenge. I do like the aspect of it in a college football. If you have a senior laden team and they lost 3 years in a row to their opponent and they're a better team this year, that's usually a good situation to at least be focusing in on. It doesn't make it an automatic bet. But if there was ever really an automatic bet, it would have been coming this week, unfortunately, except for one reason: depletion of injuries. But the Kansas City Chiefs last year lost at home to the Las Vegas Raiders, a crap team. And the Raiders not only won the game, but they basically danced on their head after the game and smoked cigars in the locker room like they just won the Super Bowl, and trolled the Kansas City Chiefs. When they asked Patrick Mahomes about it, he said, "We'll handle that when we handle it." And guess what? It's time to handle that this week. And everything focuses in this situation on a Kansas City team that's playing a Raiders team that is absolutely abysmal as far as I'm concerned. I said it on another video, but the Raiders have no wide receiver. Not a number one, not a number two. They have no wide receivers. Yeah, they got them out there, but they're not a one. Their number one and two wouldn't play on any other team. Their number one receiving threat is Brock Bowers, the tight end, who is a real stud. But that's hard to believe. You know, they lost Devontae Adams. This team is 2-5. They could be worse than that. I'll give them credit. They beat the Ravens. Okay, they beat the Ravens, but they did it with 260 total yards. And then they had a quarterback who got benched for another quarterback who got hurt. So the bench quarterback comes back. Offensive line's not good. Running game's not good. No weapons on offense. When we look inside the numbers of this game, okay, the tough part is that you have to lay 10 points with Kansas City. Okay, but let's look at in depth a little bit deeper in this game. You have the Raiders who beat Cleveland, one of the worst offenses we've seen in decades. Okay, they beat them 20-11. They had 268 total yards of offense. That's the Raiders. Then they beat the Ravens. They had 260 total yards and got a win. That's very hard to win games with that type of total yardage. You got to have a lot of things work in your favor. But they did beat the Ravens. They did allow almost 400 total yards to the Ravens, so they didn't play that well on defense. The defense has actually played pretty well, considering the fact Crosby was out of game, and it seems like the players do not like the head coach at all, Pierce, who is just an absolute moron too. So that actually increases your chances if you're looking at the Kansas City side or any team playing the Raiders every single week. But let's look now at their 5 losses. They lost to Carolina by 14. They got a bazillion points. They got drubbed. Carolina, they can't get out of their own way. They couldn't beat the kids in the neighborhood, but yet they beat the hell out of the Raiders. Fourth worst offense in the league. Hard to believe they're not the worst. They had a couple of good games with Dalton when he came in relief of a quarterback. So the next game we have, they lost to the LA Chargers by 12 points. The Chargers are no scoring juggernaut. That's the 8th worst offense in the NFL. They lost to the Denver Broncos by 16 points. They're the 6th worst offense in the NFL. They lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers by 19. It's the 19th offense in the league. And then they lost to the LA Rams on Sunday, 2015. They lost by 5. They're the number 20 offense in the league. So they faced one offense in the top half of the league. And of course, it was the Raiders. And again, they gave up a pretty lot of yardage. If they caught the Raiders right now, they'd probably give up 575 yards, forget 383. But this is a situation where the Raiders' offense is averaging 17 points a game. That's the 7th worst scoring offense. The Kansas City defense allows 17 points a game. But let's look at who Kansas City has played. Now, Kansas City has not played well in my mind, but they're 6-0. And why? Because they're a winning organization. But Kansas City has faced Baltimore and Jackson, Cincinnati and Burrow, Atlanta and Kirk Cousins, LA Chargers and Herbert, Saints when they had Carr, and San Francisco and Brock Purdy. They basically faced six of the top almost 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. They held them to 320 yards for Burrow, total offense. Cousins and the Falcons, 311. Herbert, 224 in the offense, LA. Carr and the Saints got 220. And Purdy had 310. And a little bit of that was at the end of the game there on a couple good drives at the end. They held the Atlanta Falcons to 3 points in the second half. They held the Chargers to no points in the second half. The defense for Kansas City's playing lights out. And I just wonder when my neighbors are, a lot of my neighbors are big Raider fans. I absolutely despise the Raiders. I'm not a Raiders fan, but they're season ticket holders. And it's funny because most of these guys, to be able to get a free ride for the whole season, they have to sell a couple of games. And when Pittsburgh comes to town or certain teams come to town, they can sell those tickets for high amounts of money. The Raiders and the Chargers do not even have home games. They have them, but they don't have any fan support. In fact, in this game, it'll be littered with a sea of red. You'll think you're watching a game at Arrowhead, and it's going to be here in Vegas. So there's no extra advantage. It's a game that the Kansas City fans are going to be hyped up for. Patrick Mahomes going to be hyped up. Now that Chiefs even have Tampa Bay on deck, which Tampa Bay just lost everything with Goodwin and Evans at the wide receiver position. So, they're not going to be too much worried about that with the defense that's playing lights out right now for Kansas City. So I would be looking to play on this Kansas City team at a high level had they not had some serious injuries. Pacheco, who I really love, one of the hardest runners in football. And I made a tape about last week about Connor and the Arizona Cardinals offense and how I love Connor. And when you watch tape and you really watch play after play, guys that never quit, never give up, keep breaking tackles. That was Pacheco. He was kind of a heart and soul of the offense for the Chiefs, and he would extend first downs. And you keep giving Patrick Mahomes 3, 4, 5 extra plays on the drive, he's going to eventually burn you. I don't see how they have any trouble with the Raiders in this game. And like I said, with that revenge, and you stuck it to them like that, doing what they did with the cigars and taunting them after the game like they just beat the Chiefs in a Super Bowl game when it was a regular season worthless game. I could see the Chiefs going out there, Andy Reid and Mahomes saying, let's go for 40, let's go for 50. So that would be the situation I'd be looking at on Sunday with the Kansas City Chiefs. But again, you're laying 10 points, and they are a little bit shy of some talent. It's almost like we're back to Kelsey being the number one wide receiver now with the injury bug that they've had at the wide receiver position for the Kansas City Chiefs. So be careful a little bit there, but still should be a game that Kansas City could write the score because the defense is playing so good. I would even venture to say that the defense will get one defensive touchdown in this game against the Raiders on Sunday. So for prop bettors, take a look at that prop bet. I don't bet prop bets, but I bet you get decent value on that. And I would not be shocked at all that they get a touchdown because the quarterback play has been just atrocious, and there's no real wide receiver talent. The offensive line's not good for the Raiders, and the defense is just so well coached by Kansas City that they could get a touchdown on the defensive side of the ball as well. So that's it for our Kansas City revenge angle, and that's one of the situations where revenge actually, as far as I'm concerned, is very live. Most revenge games they're not really live. They're there, but they're not situational live revenge spots. So be careful of that as you go forward. Enjoy all the videos, and this is Gary Greene and Gary Wins with the Gary Wins videos of the week.